Ayin Beis, Volume 1, up to chapter 142. And so we're talking here about how the others are drawing down the energy, what we call the Keach HaGvul, Kel Shaddai, which was at length discussed in the context of the first Yichud of Yisrael Sab and Tfuna, which is basically the Meichin, or you could say the mind, God's plan as it applies to existence, which means Meichin Shayach L'Midas. So in chapter 141, in the discourse 36 Kedach, he explained, he went back. Yeah, well, I'm talking the logic of it. That's one of the proofs, so to speak. Remember, there's, as I said yesterday, there's two things in existence. Well, there's many things, but two key things. Like in anything, there's functionality. Like when you tell your children, here's how you eat properly, or here's how you make a bracha, or here's how you even walk in the street. There's a functionality that has reasons behind it that the person may or may not know at the time, or they may know a minimal amount of the reasons. And then there's a whole behind the scenes, like why? Like if your child says, why? Why do we have to do it this way, not that way? So there's a reason behind it. See, God created the world with reason. That's the key. If He had not created with reason, let's say He just created a functional existence where we breathe and eat and do everything we need to do to survive, and there's no real logic behind it. Either we don't have logic altogether, we don't think with logic, or we have logic and we don't understand. It could have been a world, for example, where there were no scientific understanding of existence possible. You'd see the sun rise sometimes 6 in the morning, sometimes 7 in the morning, sometimes 1, or even if it's all the time. You couldn't figure out a logic. You'd see a human being. Okay, if you're healthy, you're healthy. If something breaks down, God forbid, we don't know what to do. But God created an existence with a system that works. And if you understand it with experimentation, even without even just observation, you can figure out, something? When a hand is hurting, there are different reasons. There's a nerve, there's a muscle. You can identify a logical system. And by doing so, you can either repair, you can replicate, etc., etc. I mean, we don't need proof. The proof is in the pudding. The fact that human beings were able to devise technology as we know it, starting from the wheel, starting from numbers, and many things that were not divine revelation. We're not talking about God. If every revelation came as Hashem came to somebody and said, listen, there's a thing called a wheel, go make a wheel. Or there's a thing called bread, go bake bread. It wasn't that way. Most things that we actually use, coffee for example, came through accidents, what we would call an accident. Obviously there's maybe a higher Hashgacha Pratis, but there's also, it's not just a divine providence, there's a deep, profound logic in existence. And as I said, without the tzimtzum, it would be very obvious, it's divine logic. The thing is, we can distort and convince ourselves it's whatever, it's nature, what they call natural selection. Existence itself chooses, is wise. Species are survivors, so if there's a lot of sandstorms, they'll develop long eyelashes. That also is a logic. And even if it's true, that also is embedded in the system. This is a critical component because it goes back to what the point I've always been making, that also helps prove why would God do that. Animals don't need to know that because animals can't manipulate existence. Animals are not going to study their own lives and the nature in order to develop better technologies. Humans do. So the answer is because God wants a relationship with us. So He created commonalities between us and Himself, so to speak. He, in other words, embedded His mind into our mind. And it's in there. It sits. And there are millions and billions of things that we still don't know that are waiting to emerge. So this really, in essence, in different words, is really the Hasoge Elikis. Remember the last chapter, the critical, very powerful chapter about Moshe. I think chapter Kuf Mem is I didn't even review it because I thought it was just so solid. It's pretty clear how he goes through detail, how everything in this world is a moshel for an imshel. And that's how you actually start getting a mukhshis. This is like, to me, chapter Kuf Mem is the essence of Chassidus Chabad. You can learn all about these ideas esoterically, but they sort of mukhshis, take a moshel, an example from our life, like I said, with laundry or other things, and show how this is literally detail by detail. It says the details, not general, is an example for godly ideas. This is where it really comes together. Because loss of love, what do you think the world will look like? You talk about Mashiach, not to make it so mysterious. That's simply what it comes down to. Like I said about to the doctors. Everyone in their field will see in what they do, not just the wisdom of it, but the Koach HaPeil Benifel. They'll see the maker in it. They'll see the poet, the artist inside the art. And it's actually quite eloquent when you put it that way. Because even a person who's, let's say, will call himself a non-believer will say, of course I'd love to meet the artist behind the art. Make the art so much richer. I can have a conversation with him. So my point is that this is so that's what we're talking about here. The Ovis obviously are, as I said, their key thing is to realign that, to bring the artist back into the picture after all the distortions. In Ayin, be'etzem, like it says in the Kutzah, today we also have Ovis before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. Not technically we're after Matan Torah, but we all have. Let's say before Bar Mitzvah, we're more like Ovis of it. After Bar Mitzvah, or honestly, even as adults, let's be honest, we're probably closer. The Chiddush of Matan Torah happened, but many of us still need to work on just our basic structure. What's so powerful about Matan Torah is you could ask, the world is perfect with the Ovis. If everyone lived up to what the Ovis wanted to do, which was awareness in the existence of everything that's divine, all the way to the farthest blidai. It's a pretty decent, more than decent accomplishment. That is Mashiach, in a way. Because you say, for example, the first step of Mashiach is Elotel Desperes, like he says in the Rambam. He'll bring it back to the way it was meant to be. Even halachas, even mitzvahs.
That's all the mission before the Chet, right?
Yeah.
So that's what the Rebbe wanted to do.
And Hanami. Yeah, but obviously the God's relationship with us, he wants even deeper. He doesn't want to just go back to square one. What's the Lashon of the Gemara? The Gemara says, what's the Lashon of the Gemara? They don't bring Lashon of the Gemara, a businessman that just gives back what he made. Yeah. Zav Tagin Lo Yikra. If you just put in $100 and get back $100, it's a loss. Because all your time was not compensated for. But let's say it's not a loss. Let's say you're even. What kind of achievement is that? So the whole thing was not to go back to square one. That's for sure not definitely. But more importantly, I think God doesn't want a relationship just with himself as an artist. He wants taka deeper, like a true marriage. True marriage is not just. He wants to do the fullest possible relationship. That's why you talk about Edison, the Suyin, and so on. Anyway, the point that we're going to talk more about Matan Torah plenty. But people talk about others and Matan Torah like so flippantly. To live a life the way living Matan Torah, the way it should be, I would say is the best. Is would be wonderful. There'd be no lashon hara. Let's just start with the basics. It'd be basically people focused. So in chapter Kuf Mem Aleph, he brings it back now, and essentially let's just summarize that chapter and then continue.
Summarized it yesterday.
Not Kuf Mem Aleph. I summarized everything till there. Kuf Mem Aleph 141 goes back to the Ovis. So he says everything we discussed earlier, which is the difference between the two Yechudim, primarily talking about Yisrael Savatun, which is the Midas of Chacham Bina, or Nehi of Chacham Bina, means how they apply, is obviously not the core Meichen. It's not the core mind of the divine mind, it's the mind already as it applies. Which, by the way, and I think I said this and I'll say it again, that actually has a big mila, a big advantage, virtue over Meichen itself. Because Meichen itself is detached. And you do want to know how it is functional. So in other words, to just talk about God is one thing, but to speak about God in a way like Lasses Daka Mishpat, Mahuchan Mafatachan, in other words, that we should emulate and bring it into some type of application, is Meichen Shaykh Lamidus. So it's not just it's a lower level, but it's the purpose is for it to come down. That's very clear. So this is like the hey of Shem Havaya. Yisrael Sabbat Funa, Moichen Shaykh Lemidus. I'm just using all the words he used that can have been Iker Mokir Shtalshlus, that's the beginning of Shtalshlus. And this is the way the structure of existence maintains Chachma and Bina separate. And this is where the Ovis do their main work. Then, of course, there's another level, which is when Abba V'Imei Eloyin, which will be Lasid Lovei, Matan Torah, is a taste of it, where it defies the structure and everything becomes united, Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik, etc., etc. So Kuf Memalef, he goes, Al Pi Hanal Yuvanam Shachashim Shicha Ovis. I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm just put it in context. And the difference between the Ovis and Matan Torah. So the Ovis, let's go back now, is Kel Shaddai. Everything is through the lens of Kel Shaddai, even their Havaya. And what was Kel Shaddai? Now he's connected. Kel Shaddai is Bria, is Bina, which is wedged, which is nests in Bria. So there you got the connection. Because as we spoke, what is Shaddai? We spoke that Shaddai is Sha'omer Le'lamei, which Elam, so he says, it's him saying to the world of Atzilus Dai. Because Atzilus is on its own, would just continue an extension, it's a divine force. So Shaddai becomes the so-called regulator of the flow. Slows down or stops the flow. And he says a word that Shem Kil Shaddai Bebriya. He says, explains now the parsha between Atzilus and Bria. Where does it come from? Again, connected to Bina. Chitzeni is Bina. Chitzeni is Bina. Chitzenius. Remember, Pnimi is Bina. When you focus and concentrate and connect to your teacher in the deepest way, that goes right into the Nukud, into the point, and there's a deeper connection, all the way to Atik. But Chitzenius Bina is from there's the root of the Chashmal, Vusha Chashmal, which Malbish Lazum, which is like the garment that becomes a veil between Atzilus and Bria. That's the Dai. And we said Dai is not on the worlds, obviously, it's on the Koyach HaLeki, the divine force in the worlds. Hagadol v'Hagibur. So Hagadol would be Chesed, would continue to flow. Hagibur is the Gvura, the Din, that says Dai. Okay? The Pas. And what's Kael and Shkel Shaddai? So Kael is the Chesed, that's the Gadol. Because without Hakel, you have no flow. You need to have a flow. You just want it to be regulated. You want it to die. You want it to be confined. But you don't want to stop it completely. So you want to Ur, that's a Kael, so it's coming from Kael. But you want it to come through the Pargud or the Parsa, the curtain. So we have what he calls Ur Shel Tulda. Ur Shel Tulda, as I explained, is an Ur of... Tulda is a child. In this case, like a branch.
Secondary type of it.
Right? So second type of air is like the air in its first bounce would be the way it's on this side of the curtain. On the other side of the curtain, you have air shel tulda. It's air, but it's shel tulda. In other words, it doesn't have the original, it's not quite the original intensity. There is a jump. It's not just a diminished air. It's not like air going through a window or through even a wormhole. It's going through a curtain, so there's air shel tulda. And this is what the Avos did. Basically, they were mamshich kel shayish k'mashu b'atzil b'chins bina d'atzilus. Now he goes, the next interpretation of Shaddai is Shidai, the breasts, which are also a source of flow of energy, but they also come from a concealed state. Cholav Shadei Imei. Shadei Imei. Bircha Shadayim. Right. And he began to explain that by explaining the Pardes. Pardes says that's Yichud of Yisod and Malchus. Kel Shaddai is Yichud of Shel Malchus. What does that in its root? That's Yisrael Saba and Tfuna. So Yisrael Saba and Tfuna was the Midas of Meichin, of Chachma rather, and the Midas of Chachma connecting with the Midas of Bina. On a lower level, that's Yisod and Malchus. And that's the root of all flow, of all hashpahs. That's Bircha Shadayim V'Rechem. Liyas Hashpah B'Ribui. Because what does that do? The Shadayim nurse and nurture the child. So they're a source of they're a source of energy, a source of life. To explain this, he went into a whole discussion of Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael min ha'elam v'ad ha'elam. Baruch is Hamshach. We see Hamshach that goes from min ha'elam v'ad ha'elam. What are these two elams? So he explains, generally this is going to go now into a whole discussion of Alma Disgasi and Alma Disgali. It's a new subject, new language. It's related obviously to the whole topic. But in Ayin Beis, he's now introducing a new theme. And that new theme is these two worlds. As we're going to learn, they're very relative. Alma Disgasi means hidden, Alma Disgali means revealed worlds. What means hidden or revealed? Hidden and revealed, it depends where you're speaking. He's going to discuss a whole bunch of different levels, what's called Iskasi and Isgalia. He begins like this. Alma Iskasi, just to define it, when you say something is a concealed world, it means concealed for anyone that's not in that world. That means the Gili there, the revelation there is so intense or powerful that anything outside of it cannot relate to it. Considered as he calls Cheshech. Okay. It appears to me this is going to be Shidayim in a certain way, but I'm not sure yet. I don't want to go there till he concludes. Okay. So basically, for it to become Gilu, you need a tzimtzum of what's concealed. So he begins, Yudua, the first definition of Alma Disgasi, Alma Disgali, we'll do it very methodically, is Bria and Yitzira. That's why we say Yetzer Er or Beira Cheshech. Beira Cheshech, Yetzer Er. Why Beira? Why is one called Bria, one is called Yetzer? Because Beira is the world of Cheshech. Because it's Gili, it's a revelation there, it's more intense. So it's Cheshech compared to anything outside of it. What's the example for it in our Keiches HaNefesh? Here again, you see always in Chassidus talks the level, and then it talks about how it's within us. And as we learn in the chapter Kuf Mem, which I also think absolutely necessary to refer to again and again, it's like a very fundamental chapter on Moshel and Imshel. So we said Moshel is not just an example for us to understand. A Moshel that God gives is actually, we are a Moshel. Like Torah is a Moshel Kadmeni. We are a Moshel for when we say we're B'Tselem Elikim, we're a Moshel for Elikus. So Machshava Dibur is the best Moshel for these two worlds. What's Machshava Dibur? Someone will say, which one's revealed, which one's concealed? The answer is, it depends what you're talking about. If to the person himself, Machshava is far more revealed. You have much more clarity in your mind, the idea is more in detail, more in depth. Dibur requires effort, that's why it's hard to do. Because you have to limit the flow and you have to capture it in words. Look how many times some people say, okay, you say your mind, I get it, and then someone says, okay, express it. Not so easy. Why is it not so easy? Not because you don't get it necessarily, but because to express in words means limiting it is far more difficult. The truth is, once you put it in Dibur, we learn, obviously your Machshav also gets more crystallized. But bottom line is, there's definitely more Eir in Machshav. You talk for Azulas, for another person, Machshav is more Cheshech. I have no idea what you're thinking. What was his words here? Very powerful words. He says, it's the first levush, meaning is the first expression. So if the mouth of the well is your seichel energy, what's the first veil, or so to speak, or first handle, is machshava. So machshava is going to get the best, the greatest flow, because it's the first place where it all rests. It's also the most subtle place. That's levush hadramabas. I'm just going over words. The intensity of the flow. She says, just like with Midas, when there's an intensity, you can't express it, you have no words to speak. When you're excitable person, is very hard to express yourself then. Same thing with Seichel. When it's really flowing, your mind is excited and you're getting it very well on your side of your machshava, but it doesn't express in Dibur. That's why it's called Cheshech Legabe Hazulas. So perfect, Bria Legabe Yitzir. Here's the expression that I wanted to go to. Share gam kishiyachshiv Adam kol hayem kula lo yoda azulas klal. It's an interesting expression for several reasons. First of all, it's a nice visual. A person could be sitting right now. You could be sitting near somebody, thinking all day. You have no idea. More importantly, how many people right now are giving thoughts that are completely not aware to anybody? But there's also an interesting thing I think here is it says in Shulchan Aruch even, Machshava Meshetat is Tamid. The person is always thinking. The wheel is always turning. He says here, he says, everybody thinks Kol Hayom Kulei. Clearly he's not talking about a person who's just a shtusim. When you say the wheel is turning, it doesn't mean that what you're thinking has any value. It just means your mind is always doing something. It's called daydreaming. Fantasizing. It would be interesting if you can document how many machshavas you had in a day and how much of it, what most of it is about. Would that probably be quite embarrassing.
Of course, that's nothing lost love officially.
Everything gets revealed.
Yeah, everything gets revealed.
Yeah.
All you
We might as well train ourselves now.
And sometimes you have these, like nights where you have this weird dream, and everybody you met through the week comes up in the dream somewhere.
Step up to the plate, now it's your turn now. And everybody's sitting there laughing.
That's why we should all go to group therapy for a while. Before I listen about it.
Yeah, you
Be able to tell all that.
Yeah.
All right.
I just had one dream last night that's just sticking with me.
Really?
I don't like it. No, it was, I'm not going to say names. It's one of the Rav I know in this community. I don't know if he's official or not official, but he's also a very big ego. I think his ego is bigger than his Rav part. So whenever I see him, I always think of his nose in the air too much. So my dream is a funny dream that I meet him in the street. I say, by the way, I have no time. Can you take my clothing to the cleaners? Like in my dream, I'm trying to humiliate him.
Hey.
And he does, it doesn't pass not to take, so. And then he takes and ends up in a pizza shop. That was the way the dream went.
Be caught. Yeah, in the pizza.
What do you think about this Gajsinski story?
He's back on his feet?
No, you didn't hear this whole story?
Oh,
I just heard it
the
yesterday.
Shliach in Greda?
Yeah.
So he had this heart attack, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, his dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, there's a big debate about people who have, when they're in those states.
Right. Could be the
Look, the Rebbe comes to somebody in a dream. If you think about the Rebbe, of course he's going to come to you in a dream. But it's actually the Rebbe, not another story.
Ah,
Right.
Yeah, I had some.
might be not sure.
Everybody to their own. What should I tell you? If it adds in you your Shemayim, I got no problem even if you didn't have a dream, even if it's complete fantasy. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't, what difference does it make? I'm a practical guy when it comes to things like that. I told you my things. Look. Everybody's got their relationship the way they need their relationship. There's different types of relationships.
Not only
Simple.
the Rebbe. No, the whole thing is not only the Rebbe. Officially, there's a whole business Shamayla.
I mean, if the Rebbe made miracles, I would be almost insulted by it. I don't see that magicians make miracles. I don't need Rebbes to make miracles. My connection to Rebbes not. And I've seen magicians do things that are unbelievable.
That's morals still like.
Yeah, I've heard people in South Africa, black magic. I heard from people who I know very well. They said they saw people do things that impossible human being can do. Yeah, but they were sorcerers and black magic, and their faces painted and pierced. They didn't look like my Rebbe.
Look where you put it.
I walked on
Honestly,
You put it in a good way.
I walked on fire. I did a firewalk once.
I got no problem with that. It's fine. It's fine.
Incredible.
I understand your point of view, but you don't understand mine. That's what bothers me. Huh?
I'm a Chagasnik, I guess.
No, but no. I understand your perspective, but you don't. But one second, but you relate to what I'm saying at all?
100%. I envy you, believe me. Trust me, I wish I could get it like you guys.
Maybe because I was
That's
close.
why I live here.
I think you have a different level of relationship.
It could be because, to me, honestly, maybe I never looked for it even. Maybe if I would have looked, I would have seen. Like the story with the Rebbitzins. She said it was under the table so much, she didn't even bother to pick it up. I had much far bigger. My issues were far bigger. Than, a miracle wouldn't help me. My Nefesh Habamis, a miracle would not help. That's why I'm impressed. Because it would mean nothing to me. It would mean so what? So people have powers. Powers doesn't mean anything. People have power that Bilam had power. He had a donkey that spoke to.
He's a Navi.
I'm impressed by that.
He's a Navi.
Okay, so what? That's also a nice thing. I'll tell you the truth. I don't relate to that though. The miracle parts that very much. I understand that God. I understand that in the engineering room you can play with wires and do anything possible. conceptually it's not an issue altogether for me. Obviously.
Simon wouldn't have been happy in the first base of Mikdash.
Look, it was destroyed, so clearly something didn't work there. With all the nice miracles.
What didn't impress them?
Right, because you get used to it, and it's not
It
internalized.
It wasn't a Vinny.
It's not internalized. No. Look, we're talking apples and oranges. No one takes away miracles. Chassidus says itself that a miracle, the ultimate is should be melubish b'derech hateva. You see it in nature, it's far more, like we learned here, Chochmah is riyah. When you hasaga, when you comprehend it, it's yours, it's internalized. That's ultimately the goal, for sure. Because then you can rely on it. You see, also when I see people, I also saw enough. I saw people who had miracles. It changed their life, but they couldn't sustain it. And there was ultimately a regression. And they lost it. I saw people blown away by different proofs that the Torah is real. I fundamentally don't trust such a. I actually abhor it to the point that even if someone offered, I wouldn't, because I always see the long term.
They make seminars.
Even if it's true, I'm not getting out to con artists. There's plenty of con artists too, but even if it's true, it's short. It's sugar. It's sugar.
My nest was 41 years ago. I felt different on Shabbos, and that was a nest, and I sort of kept it.
You felt different on Shabbos. To me, it's not a miracle.
To me, it was.
Okay,
and
fine.
Before that, I didn't, and I loved to feel that.
So maybe it was internalized. That's why you're here. That the proof is in the pudding. I can tell you a lot of kids. By the way, I can tell you a lot of kids of Baalei Tshuva who I've spoken to personally, who are no longer within the fold, so to speak. They say, they're smart guys. They say, my father saw something. He saw it. It was his flash of lightning, not mine. I'm just his offspring. It was never internalized by him, and therefore it never passed on to me. I'm not saying that alone is a reason, but I could see that. See, that's one of the nafkaminas. You see a miracle, it changes you. It won't change me.
Yeah. But I paid my tuition every year for my kids.
But on the other hand, but if you internalize it, also, let's say you have a revelation, then you internalize it, you have a lot more to give to those around you. You can't just tell them, hey, believe it because I saw it. I would never go. My father told me that he saw a miracle. So it's good. So it's good for you. I mean, what does that have to do with me? So I have to make choices in my life because you made a choice based on your miracle. That's not even. Would he do the same if he didn't have the miracle? And someone told him. That's where makif without panimi becomes a big problem.
I thought there was a panimi when it changes you.
But you never heard the Chassidus that the miracles. Why don't miracles happen every day? Why doesn't God do a miracle? Why does God Himself find it difficult to make Kriyas Yamsuf? Because it's not the way. It's not the derech.
Right.
It's not derech of Torah.
But I understand it.
Why is it not?
Unusual. I'm not questioning about the unusual.
Even unusual, it's always makif.
Normal. But if it changes a person, that's.
I don't know. No, I never heard of a miracle change a person. It doesn't say a miracle like a susa de leila. It lifts you up somewhere for a moment. And then the person, what happens, what you do next?
Even Matan Torah, look at Matan Torah.
Right, even Matan Torah, even the deepest things.
No, you were saying that people they made a major change. Something gave them a major change in their life. And they kept it. And the kid says, well, that was his problem. But it really,
because it never changed him.
But it changed the father. No?
So what? So it's his personal thing. But it's not. It's called makif. That's called makif. If you can't affect another, the rest assured is pretty makifdik. But you're living with makif. Your makif satisfies you.
Ongoing.
Between you and me, if a person didn't put a premise, trust me, it's also affecting that person. Except he's overlooking many things. That's the reason it doesn't affect others. What do you mean? If the person remains makif because of, let's say, he saw something real, means that he's just basically overlooking. He didn't change himself. He just changed an action based on this revelation. That's why he's unable to influence others. That's one of the reasons. That's exactly what he's. Even Matan Torah, which is not considered just a miracle, Matan Torah is considered a real change in existence. Sure. And even that was only Lefisha ultimately. Har Sinai didn't remain holy. The space is not a holy space. It's not like where the Beis of Mikdash is.
We did get several ongoing things from it.
What's the but? What I'm saying to you is never heard before. That the Matan Torah did not permeate the space where it happened, and the Beis of Mikdash did.
And the Yidden made an angle 40 days later.
Yeah. Of course it changed the world, but what does that mean? It changed certain dynamics. Individuals, Anyway, the point of the matter is, it's not enough until you internalize it. That's as clear as day. That's why we're still here. You know.
But he said a very powerful statement before, which I never thought about. It's an ongoing market. Someone could live his whole life with an ongoing market.
You could, absolutely.
That's
It's usually what it's called lobotomy. They cut out part of themselves. They just ignore certain things.
That's like non-Lubavitcher, right?
And I see a lot of Lubavitchers doing this.
Also, but it's like the.
I wouldn't say that. That's what Lubavitchers like to say. I actually don't see it that way.
Okay, so what's it? Okay, you don't. Okay, good.
The interesting, odd irony,
Yeah.
I thought about this, is we always talk about, this is also, you never just talk doctrine. Think about what you say. We're always told that tzaddik b'menasa yichya, yichaya, and so on.
Yeah.
That by the chagas, they just rely on the tzaddik. Chabad works on themselves. Okay, I'd like you to show me specimens of both, instead of just in theories and books. The irony, the interesting twist is that Chabad far more trust their Rebbe than any Chagas Chassid trusts his Rebbe. There's far more crutch in Chabad on the Rebbe than in any other Chassidus.
And they work on themselves more.
And that's one thing.
And they work on themselves more.
Depends who, it's case by case. I can't make such a rule.
Why do you make
Chabad wants that. Doesn't mean that people.
Why do you make
No way. No way.
Is that a mile or a chesor?
Do me a favor.
I'm asking you.
Walk into 7-7. You tell me. I told you many times. Hey, what happens to?
But what is it, mile or chesor?
But you know something? The whole thing. We not. Yeah. I never put it on.
Really?
It recorded, but it was underneath it. It's probably not so sharp.
It's under the table.
Is that a mile or a chesor?
That it was not heard what I just said? Or depends who you ask. It depends. Bria Yitzira.
This
No, you
greater,
said
deeper
that
relationship.
Chabad relies on the Rebbe much more than
Right, which is an interesting twist.
That it was off then.
It wasn't off. It was definitely going. It was just.
It was a mess.
Yeah, so what did you think about that?
I just find it as an interesting twist. So I wonder whether it's Eis Gehalten. Maybe it's just part of human beings' nature. In Chabad, people want a crutch, and it's not really. That's not the way necessarily it should be according to Chassidus Chabad. This type of so-called dependence, or it could be that the earlier Rabbeim would have not accepted such a level of so-called absolute.
Don't write to me about person.
And the Rebbe, maybe because he did this Aderis, became more of a much more melech.
Yeah.
Look, the Reshib of the Chassidim of the Rebbe far more like a melech, more than any other Rebbe. That's for sure. Not that the other Rebbeim were not revered and looked up and respected, but I guess, this type of almost like the Rebbe. Then the Rebbe, his Farbrengen was, removed. Like, you didn't just have a conversation with him, you didn't go into him afterwards to talk about it. It was very different in many ways, based on what I heard, how it was by previous
early years, like 51,
But the bottom line is, listen, the Tzaddik Amnasa Yechi Yechai doesn't change just because some people need a crutch. That doesn't mean that's the way it's supposed to be. I personally see it more that the Rebbe was a Rebbe to everybody, and different people used him for different things. Some people did need a crutch, more child, and the Rebbe, I guess, did not decline. The people turned to him that way, because Chassidus was not just for the elite. But there's no way that that's the kavanah. That's why you find that the closer the greater Chassidim, that's why they had less kiruvim. They did not have that type of, the Rebbe did not just answer their questions because they needed him. And people who were so-called, let's say, more, not so within, the Rebbe did allow them to look at him like, just...
Like our guys, we stood in the bleachers, we stood there like soldiers.
He would never have tolerated a real chassid asking him questions that are like a crutch type. You're just not relying on the Rebbe instead of yourself. On the other hand, the Rebbe in many ways, even with everybody, never told anybody what to do. He made suggestions and he wanted people to choose. The problem is the tendency of human beings, and this would always, tendency of human beings is that they want is a herd mentality. People have a herd mentality. Many people, they want to be led like sheep. even though no one's going to ever admit it individually, but many people are that way. And so a lot of people are fed into that, so we have these type of movements within. People just do things because everybody else is doing it. And it's nothing to do with any thinking or thought or internalization. But this community is not guilty of it more than any community. It's the nature of any society has a group like that, a majority usually. They call them, there's a rhyme for it, masses are something, and it's more bothersome in Chassidus Chabad because Chabad prefers talks about it and doesn't want that. There's an element, there's an element of conformity that's like demanded. But that's usually the nature of the beast in any type of ghetto, where there's a lot of Jews or a lot of people who are
Any society.
Right, I just said that, in any society like-minded. But here, it's more problematic because this is exactly what Chassidus came to change. Which is, I believe, is why the Rebbe Shlichus is really the antidote to that, because it avoids that problem. It separates people. You have to be on your own, and you have to be a leader in your community. You can't just be hanging around with people like yourself that you grew up with. There's no fresh air. Look, the key thing is a person has to be aware of this. The problem becomes when you can't have a conversation about it because people become so brainwashed and they're so convinced that this is the standard. Then we have the machlekes in that you have. You have no ability to have a communication about it because people don't even able to think. Forget about that. You became that way. You can't even think that maybe this is not the optimal life. I know I've been harsher about this. Now I'm being more mild, but the point is the same. That's why I have the biggest concerns when it comes down to the miracle thing. I mean, I could see, I don't even go anymore, but I could see a circle of people in 770 without even getting close. I know exactly what's going on. It's not even going, and I'm not a prophet. It's either machlek is based, like something happened with this one that's in a different party, so everybody's talking the Lashon Hara, or there's a miracle thing. Like a miracle, and everyone's telling the miracle, and everybody's reinforcing it and says, yes, you see how big the Rebbe is so great, and the Rebbe is great. So if out of that came a deeper sense of responsibility and sensitivity and refinement, by all means. But I don't see that happening. What happens is people become even more herd mentality, and anyone that doesn't fit the club is like, doesn't get it, and then they condescend, and then it gets worse and worse. Now, on the other hand, every individual is a gem. I have no doubt. You sit with a person one-on-one, you always can find the beauty in everybody. The worst comes out of people when they become a group. So if they're great people, the group becomes a great group. If they're not so great, it's usually the lowest common denominator comes out of it. Again, these are rules of sociology. It's cruel. You bring together a group of people, if they're great, refined people, it's going to be unbelievable. If they're not, they're going to feed the lowest common denominator, and then there's going to be a competition who can be more like witch hunts. Witch hunts. You ever read the mentality of the Salem witch hunts? Where everybody just this, and then if you say otherwise, then you become this. So you change your position because everybody else's position is that way, and something's wrong with you.
Kill the pig.
I always had this. I mean, I've said this already about.
So there was a group was great.
100% for sure. I mean, that was a shayla Alter Rebbe had b'chlal with MS Lamite, whether he should open chassidus for a larger crowd. He could have kept it or there would have been only the cream of the crop. But that was not what they wanted. Chassidus was meant to be for everybody. There's a heavy price to pay when you broaden it for everybody. Quality control is very difficult to maintain. Look, the story with Evan Tave. What's the Evan Tave? You crushed the most precious stone for the sick child, so just a drop should get between his teeth. He's a sick child. What does that mean? It means the guy is not capable of anything. But if a drop can get in, you don't care if the rest of it pours out. That's very heavy statement. That means the Rebbe is ready to pour. The Rebbe once said by Farbrengen, by the Friedrich Rebbe, in the early years, he says, the Rebbe spoke about it in Europe actually. In Europe he said, the Rebbe, he spoke about the Friedrich Rebbe, the Schwer, says, Et meisen nefesh gewen, Ayin Beis, on Chassidus, on Aveda, b'chdei gehen in Amerika, zu lernen Indisch Kind, Aleph Beis. In other words, he gave up all this. I gave it up. He taught my modern, but I mean the time that he could have used for that to teach a child Aleph Beis. That was what was required. That was what was required. And in it, there's chassidus too. That's what the biggest chassidus is in the Mesiras Nefesh of it. But it's a big price to pay, for sure, for somebody that's on that level. I thought about this all the time. I think the Rebbe basically, he knew that quality, the people of quality will understand him in that level, and those that not will do what they do, and hopefully he can get everybody on a higher level. That's what I see it. As a real leader, he just worked with everybody. And hopefully everybody, if they get a little notch more than where they are, is already better. But if you talk about personally, like Fabreng, of course we're malamet chus on others, but if you look at yourself, you have to always look not with say, oh, everything is great. Okay, so I hope we hope the first half was recorded. So he's speaking now, Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael Elam Min Ha'elam. He's speaking this again. This is also the words of. This is also the Avos. They bring it Elam Min Ha'elam. They bring it into the worlds. Remember, the Avos is Shaddai. They're bringing the whole idea of Elokus into the existence of the worlds. So we're speaking Alma Diskasya, Alma Disgalia. So Alma Diskasya is here now Bria and Yetzira, and we're talking about Machshava and Dibur. So Machshava, a person can think all day, and no Azulas won't even know about it. Another person can see that a person is deep in thought, but what they're thinking about, you won't know. And then he goes on and elaborates. This is all a summary of Kuf Mem Aleph, 141. And even though Machshava is also a Lavush, only a Lavush, all its role is to be a garment, a type of tool, right? That conveys and brings the core intellect from its root to become comprehensible. Nevertheless, it's a Lavush only that relates, it's only a revelation to yourself, not to another. Good. And compared to another, it's called Cheshach. As opposed to Dibur, which Dibur, Yetzira, is revelation, because Dibur means you're conveying, communicating it to someone else. Yeah.
You need this?
No. So this is and now we went into a discussion of Bria and Yetzira in their personality. So what really makes, so let's go deeper now, the anatomy of Machshava Dibur. What really, if you were able to put Machshava Dibur as two specimens on the table here, right? How different would they look? Obviously we're not talking about physically, but I'm just trying to analyze. They're two Levushim. They're both not the core intelligence, which is your actual brain, your mind. Definitely not your soul. So it's a Levush. But what's the difference between them? So even without thinking, you'd say right away that the Levush of Machshav is far more subtle. It's like almost like a thin, transparent veil.
Membrane.
Right, membrane. That is a Levush, so it does contain, it's a handle, but it's a very, very edel, very refined handle, and therefore it's appropriate for the mind and a person's brain to really express. Dibur, on the other hand, just like the letters of words, they are more tangible, so it's a far thicker membrane, and therefore also expression comes, but now it's with a little more effort, not as quite revealed, and so on and so forth. Just trying to think of an example. Yeah, the example would be, let's say, the eye. We spoke about the eye, the physical eye. He's going to give such examples soon. Physical eye is physical, but you can't compare the eye, for example, to your finger, to your toe. The eye has a certain translucence to it. Light goes in, light goes out. It's not too dark, it's not too light. Wherever you see the more refined organs, you find their refinement is what light, like the ear. If you ever study how sound enters, the sensitivity of the ear, what do they call them? No. Yeah, no, but there's also the sensitivity of the hairs inside the ear, the cilia. They're like literally like little nerve endings that are extremely sensitive to vibrations. So vibrations is actually what you're hearing. When I speak, how's it getting into your ear? It's actually quite a mystery. Because you're not just hearing a sound, you're hearing words, you're hearing fine tune. I sing a song, you can hear every intonation. Because it's extremely sensitive wires, like sensitive nerve endings, that pick up every vibration. I mean, with animals you see it very extremely, like shark, for 5 miles away, their sense of smell or hearing and so on. Some animals don't have good hearing, they have good. The point I'm trying to make is that the keli is a very, very refined state, and therefore it can pick up bigger things. There are other kelim that are they're not that way. They don't have that type of sensitivity. Now, again, I just want to say as a general overview. I mentioned before, the world, God created the world with a logical system, but all these levels that we talk about when we say that it's more tangible, less tangible, more refined, 10 hidden spheres, the 10 revealed spheres, Atzilus, Bri, it's everything we're speaking here. When you personalize it, it really comes down to really understanding levels of refinement. That's what it comes down to. So we have all these examples is to understand that we live in a coarse world, and there's far more sensitive dimensions. And we have examples of it all over the place. The objective is that you become a more sensitive example. For example, talk about hearing. There's two people hear the same thing. One person will hear far more depth in it than another. Why? Because he's more sensitive. He's more bittul, as we spoke. So this is all meant to help us elevate. So understanding Bri Yitzir in this way, understanding Machshav and Dibur is critical. So understand Machshav and Dibur, Bri Yitzir, he says that Bri is called Afsharius HaMetzias, and Yitzir is the beginning of Tchilas HaMetzias. What's Afsharius HaMetzias? So I'm just reading the end where we are here. So just like Machshava, why is Machshava such a good keli or levush for intelligence? Because it's not yet tangible. You can't yet call it a metzias. You can't yet say it's a full-blown garment. That's why it's able to be a very good receptacle, because it's extremely subtle still. It's like we spoke about the seed. In the state of a seed, because of its subtlety, it's able to have concentrated everything that will come later. As soon as it becomes more defined, you start losing that subtlety. So he says like this. Because such an air, the higher air can reveal in such a world, because Bria is not yet a full-bodied existence, as we discussed. It's like more the outline, the skeleton of the existence. What he calls Afsharis HaMetzias. So therefore, it's far closer to a higher revelation. Al Bizgalos HaMetzias, Ef Shali is Gilizeh. Ukmayach Machshava, like Machshava. Shala Eitzim HaBehirus. Ef Shali is Agili Al-Azulus. Because of the intensity of the clarity, of the shine, of the glow, it cannot be revealed to another in a form of kiruv. It needs a second garment. That second garment called the garment of Dibur. So that's already a more thicker garment, so to speak. Then he went to one more subject, which is Adam Karev L'Gaba Atzmei. So he says about being Karev L'Gaba Atzmei. There's an expression Adam Karev L'Gaba Atzmei. What does it mean a person is close to himself? It means there's nothing outside of him from his core. This is far closer to other types of closeness. So we have like this. You have a stranger who's like not related to you at all. Then you have relatives. What's the word of what's the meaning of a relative? Related. Related means there's a kiruv. Like he says, two brothers. Or a father and a child. But nevertheless, their closeness is not as close as you are to yourself. When, for example, when a father thinks about something, his child will not know it. So even though they're close, and there's an extension in a sense, he doesn't know it because Machshava is far closer than Dibur is. Because even if they're close, it's still a davar nesav. So even a child or brothers cannot read each other's minds. each other's thoughts. But you are far closer to yourself. What's he trying to say here? That basically the conscious you is closer to your mind than other people who are very close to you. So there's levels of closeness. And even though machshava is also davar nesev, which means also you, your conscious self, is also an additional element. Because as we spoke, the core soul is not seichel. And the same thing, the idea that you're thinking and the mind that's thinking it is not the same thing. So you have here an idea, you have your thought of the idea, and you have the actual seichel. And another step, seichel nefesh hativis, the seichel of the intelligence of the natural soul, is another addition of a superimposed addition over the seichel of the divine soul. Ubefrat klei hameichin, especially the containers of the meichin. So we discussed this, all these levels. Nevertheless, it is a unifying levush instead of a separating one. In other words, it's transparent enough or translucent enough to allow the flow through. So the core seichel is beyond, is deeper, is etzem. So you have something that's not the original thing, but it allows the original to flow through it in the fullest sense of the word. This explains, I'm on top of 274, just summing it up, how with the Elam Abriya, that it's very close to the Ayin Alaki, the divine substanceless the force that creates it. Okay. And even though Bria is still over Davar Nesev, become the issue of Prince of Sharis and Metzias, being that it's still only a state of Sharis and Metzias, not actual substance. Therefore, it unites with this to the point that you can't distinguish even between the Ayin and the Yesh. And even though this is true in all the worlds, that the Ayin, the divine force, gives it life and is the essence of all existence, but in Bria it's more revealed. Like Machshava, that is not an additional element. He adds we didn't read this, but I'll just read it. He says here on page, there's a star that says, to look in the Hisafis. So what does he say? The Hisafis, Resh Ayin Dalad. That the bittul of Ein, that there's nothing but God is dafka in the illness of Biyah. The lefi hanal, according to what we learned here, yeshlem the ilma bria bittul hanal b'chinas gili k'tzas. That this bittul of Ein is also revealed a bit. Okay. Another example for Afsharis HaMetzias is just to make it a little more palatable. I mentioned the seed. You plant the seed in the ground. The seed begins to rot. You ever see a state where the seed is like half rotted and you already start seeing like a little sprout coming out? It's half. That's an example of Afsharis HaMetzias. What does it mean? It's not quite the sapling. It's still in a very, very subtle place. But it's also not no Metzias. Just an example. So Afsharis HaMetzias in this context is the full-blown entity is not there yet, but you have the skeleton, or you have the roots or the seeds of it are in there. Okay, so all this came to explain Elam ad Elam, which is Alma Diskas and Alma Disgal, Bri Yitzira, Cheshach and Er, Machshava Dibur. So for yourself it's very revealed because it's very close to the source, to the core, but for another it's completely concealed. And Dibur is already when it becomes revealed. So we'll continue the next chapter, Kuf Ben Beis. 142, page 274. Amnam b'derech klal gimel elmas b'yah nikra amad izgali v'nikra elam hazeh shem b'chinas gili. We just said what's amad izgali and amad iskasi, Bria and Yitzira. Bria is the hidden, Yitzira is the revealed, like thought and speech. Now he's saying Amnam, however, generally speaking, all three worlds of Biyah are called revealed. Even Bria. In detail, when you break down Bria and Yitzira, Bria is hidden and Yitzira is revealed. But in general, they're all Amad is God. That's why we call them Elam Haza. This world, Zeh, Shem B'chinas Gili. You wouldn't call them Elam Haza unless they're referring to something that's revealed.
Usually called Olam Hazeh.
Not necessarily. Some places, but not always. When you speak Atzilus, you say Olam Hazeh could be Biyah in general. Again, you break it in detail, like when he speaks in Tanya, Perek Lamed Vav. He says Elam Hazayin, then he says Elam Hazeh Hatach. But also you'll see he says in Hazeh there's levels. But generally Hazeh goes on all three worlds. It says in Likutei Torah, I believe, is the first Maimon Likutei Torah. Vayakel. Ru'u ki Hashem ki nosen lachem es HaShabbos. What does he say there? That's what he says. Okay, that in general the three worlds are Elam Hazeh, Gizgalia. What then is Amid Iskasya? If all Biyah. Before we said Bria, like was taught. Amid Iskasya Elam HaAtzilus. In this configuration in the general, which is the hidden worlds, is Atzilus. Da'era Atzilus Ef Shali is Bigili B'Biyah. Because the energy of Atzilus, the light of Atzilus, cannot be revealed in Biyah. For example, the sunlight, Shu'er Godel Ma'id, which is a very intense light. Shemei La'aretz L'Adorim Aleh. It radiates, illuminates the earth, and to those that dwell there, the dwellers on the earth, inhabitants. Acha Poel Pa'ulis Niflois, to the point that it affects wondrous effects, impact. Shematzmiach Kol HaTfuas, it causes all grain to grow, all the grains. Kol HaTfuas means tfuah, grain. Like it says, Memeged Tfuas Shemesh. How does the translation of Meged? Memeged Tfuas Shemesh. From the sun, I think the growth, Meged, I think growth, is the growth of the sprouting of, probably, flowering of. If you touch Memeged Tfuas Shemesh. Probably. The fruit, probably the blossoming or the sprouting. Tfuas Shemesh, from the sun. The Chain, another big pool in Nifla. Merapa Chelim. It also heals the sick. Kamam Razal. Adli Yema, Adli Katsira. That when the day rises, or Adli, the day descends, I think rises, Adli Katsira. Katsira is from the word, I believe, healing. If I'm correct. Is that, you familiar?
No.
So anyway, so what we see here, the Eir HaShemesh is an Eir Gadol Ma'ed. It illuminates this earth. It also has very powerful and wondrous, he says, Niflois, Pulis, makes things grow, it heals. So all this is the sunlight. It's all giving an example for Atzilus now. V'zeh atzmei husibas ma she'en yechil dover she'en sibas. Okay, it says in the bottom sibas dover. And this itself is a reason ma she'en yechil is takel b'Hashemesh. This alone is a reason. I don't know why they added dover. What's wrong with what steht in Pnim? Huh? This is good in Pnim, right? This itself is a reason why you cannot look at the sun because of the intensity of the brightness of the sun, of the light. The the eyes, the container of the eyes cannot stare at it, cannot gaze at it. Without many glasses, without many, chuchis is a glass, like sunglasses. Shen klei heistrelugin shebehem. The klei heistrelugin is usually on telescopes, right?
Astrology.
But what do you need klei heistrelugin for sun? What is he referring to? Stars, yeah. Shen klei heistrelugin shebehem vayodem, with shebehem, in them and through them. Mabitim b'Hashemesh liras eirei. You look at the sun to see its light. In other words, if you really want to study sunlight, you can't just look with your eyes on it. You need to have many layers. Actually, a telescope is not just one glass. It's a whole series of, it's a whole mechanism. That's what he's saying. What's the translation of astrologin? Astronomy, right? Astronomical.
Astrologist.
Yeah, but astrology. Yeah, but klei astrologin is an astronomical instrument, basically. Klei is an astronomical instrument through which you see shebehem, in them, and through them you see the shemesh. V'gam ze lo b'kivun mamish, and also then it's not exactly aligned. It's not exactly accurate. Listakel b'derech yosher b'shemesh atzmei.
No, you don't look straight into it.
Oh, right, I'm sorry. And also then you don't look straight into the sun, straight b'kiva mamish, directly into the sun. To look straight into the sun itself. But only through aspaklaria, which is also a glass, a bilti meira that is not like not transparent. Yechelim liris, and that's when you can see it. Aspaklari ha'me'ira, aspaklari she'ein me'ira is used sometimes by the Nevuah of Moshe and the other Nevi'im. We also say in the Bar Mitzvah Maimer, a leichtendike vergrößerungsglas, and the Rebbe made it very clear that that's not accurate.
That's not the translation. Right?
I know, a leichtendike vergrößerungsglas actually is a distortion, it's an exaggeration. Ashkifim moin kotchecha, that's what he says. Aspaklari ha'me'ira, he tried to translate, I think, Rabbi Weinberg, into being a magnifying glass.
Ushbal, I think, was long.
And that's not correct. Aspaklari ha'me'ira means basically a transparent glass. And aspaklari ha'me'ira is an opaque glass. That's right. Here we're talking that it's opaque.
It's opaque.
Or yeah.
A treated glass, one way or the other.
The sibas hadavar hu riba ershabe, and the reason for this is because of the intense energy, the intense light. Shalavana she'eram mu'at, because this moon, whose light is far more diminished, you can stare at it, you can gaze at it. You can gaze at it as someone who has healthy and strong eyesight. Why does he add that? Because if someone doesn't have strong eyesight, it could be the moon could also blind him a bit, maybe. That's what he means. Probably. Or could they say the other way around? If he doesn't have strong eyesight, he can't look at it. But it's probably most likely that's the reason. Because in other words, if a person is extremely sensitive to light, so then they'll be sensitive even to moonlight. But a healthy eye can see the moon because it's far more diminished light, whereas the sun you cannot.
It must be more than that.
And this is all an example. And accordingly, similarly, we will understand the example in Shemesh Havaya. We say Shemesh Mogan Hashem Elikim. The Shemesh of Havaya, which is an example for Havaya, Shubchinas Atzilus. This is the level of Atzilus. As we said, now we're talking Atzilus is the hidden worlds. The Bederach Klal Bchinas Shem Havaya. Atzilus in general is Shem Havaya. The Eir Atzilus Yev Shali is Begili B'Biyah. That energy and light of Atzilus cannot be revealed in Biyah. V'rak mashadei b'chinas hamalchus Atzilus. It's only through the malchus of Atzilus, which in this case is like the example of the glass, the telescope, of the astronomical instrument. There can be some revelation to know the level of Atzilus. V'hainu, why? Why is that the case? Because of the intensity of the light and the revelation of Atzilus, it's covered and concealed from the worlds of Biyah, like the sun is concealed from our natural eyes. Okay, stop here. Fine. So we now have interpretation number 2 with a new example. These examples are very important. So example 1, Machshava Dibur, is an example for Bria being the hidden worlds and Atzilus and Yitzir being the revealed. Now we moved over. Atzilus is now the hidden, and Bria is the revealed. An example for this is the sunlight. Maybe Malchus is Levana. That's why he says it, because Levana is a reflection of the sun. So Malchus gives us the sun of Atzilus into Bia. So we could, with healthy eyes in Bia, you could see it. If you don't have healthy eyes, you can't see it. Or you'll be disturbed. Yeah. Okay. Either way, you can't see it, or it'll disturb you because you're too sensitive. Yeah. Okay. Ubatzilus Gufa, next level. Now we're going to third. In Atzilus itself, Malchus in Alma Diskas in Alma Disgai. Zohar Ampin, the small face, Midas, is the hidden, and Malchus is the revealed. So we're having a whole encyclopedic structure here of what means hidden and revealed world. It's known, Zohar Ampin compared to Biyah is called Kodesh. Kodesh means holy. So when Kodesh Havaya, God is holy. What means holy? Removed, separate. Li is the Zoh Seif Elama Ein Seif, because Zoh is this end of the world of Ein Seif. That's what it says in places. That's why, relatively speaking, it's in the form of Seva v'makiv, surrounding and all-encompassing, compared to Biyah, like it says elsewhere. I know you can start asking me questions. Didn't we just learn that the Midas is already connected to worlds, and Mechem Be'etzem is beyond? This comes down to, first of all, things are relative. Secondly, things have a relationship with each other. It's just a question how deep the relationship is. And the divine reflection that transmits into Biyah, that's from Malchus of Atzilus. Now he goes even further up. So we went from Bria to Atzilus to Zah, and now Bina. In Atzilus, Bina is the main hidden worlds. Going back to that pasuk, Baruch Hashem, Elokei Yisrael min Elam ad Elam. What does it say in Zohar? Ma'al milah la'al mitata. From the higher world to the lower world, which is behind Bina l'Malchus k'meshakasu makamacher. This means from Bina to Malchus. So Bina is now the hidden, and Malchus is now the revealed. Not Zah, so even more than Zah, Bina. The Yuvan Zel Derech Moshel Masha Nurayin, and gives now another example. It's example number 3.
Let's explain Bina to Malchus. I didn't understand that at all.
Why not?
Bina is not revealed.
Yeah, because Bina is the mind. It's in the mind. It's in the mind still. So in the mind is still concealed.
Oh yeah, as opposed to Machshava.
As opposed to Midas, emotions.
And
He's going to give now an example. And we'll understand this with an example. Now going to the AARP division. I hope this isn't relevant to anybody here. So here's another example. So far we had the example Machshava Dibur, we had the example of the sun, and now goes, we see when a person comes into his years, Yeser, meaning increasingly, ages. But it's a nice way to say Baba Shanim, like by Avram, Baba Yomim. He comes into his years more. Nechshachim Enov. His eyes darken. means when you start needing reading glasses. Your eye is darker means v'sibas hadavar hu kaneder sheklei ayin hin nekuda achas me'ira ve'eid mitzad achas. The reason for this is because it's known that the container of the eye, actually the eye vessel, the vessel of the eye, is a nekuda achas. It's a point, the eyeball, me'ira. That's what was the word? Radiant. A radiant nukud. It's not just a marble. It's a radiant. From one hand, it's very illuminating, radiant or transparent, you can say. Interesting. He's saying, in other words, the front of it, the eye that meets light, has an element of transparency or translucence, because light enters and it.
Cataracts, maybe already.
No, it's not. He's talking on the healthy eye now. He's talking on the healthy eye.
Because the pupil, the dark of the eye.
I guess
And
so.
around it is
The pupil, the ret.
retina.
What do we have? The pupil is the black part.
Yeah.
What's the white part called?
The iris.
The iris.
Talking about the nekuda.
The kuda could be the whole eyeball. The kuda may be the whole
That
eyeball.
part is the pupil.
That's where the person sees
It's
from.
around
The
collar.
pupil gets larger or
The
smaller.
white part.
The pupil gets larger or smaller.
Yeah, the iris is the color around, not the white. Oh, it's the white.
The pupil gets larger in a dark room to adjust,
More light.
and it gets smaller in a right room, right? Because there's a lot of light, right? Yeah, you know that? That's an obvious.
I know that.
Okay, of course. No, my point is saying here. I don't know. I'm not sure if I don't want to say yet pupil. He wants to say now. I don't know whether he means pupil or bottom line. He wants to say that on one hand the eye is definitely a translucent entity. You'll soon see. 1 second. And it has element that adjusts to light and it allows light in and allows light out. It's like a reflector. I mean, it's far more complicated. It's not just a mirror or a glass. It has its own mechanisms, but it's a mechanism that's a radiant mechanism. But he says, "Megimu rucheseha," to me sounds like he means not the front of the eye, but the three other sides, like the sides of the eye and the back of the eye. The eyeball is the eyeball. So you have this part that's facing, let's say, outside. That is, he says, is radiant, illuminating. Then the three other sides, he says, umaylo mata, on the top of the eye and the bottom of the eye.
No.
He doesn't think it's very much.
Huh?
Okay, but
You don't think he means what?
No, I don't see the answer.
What do you think it is?
I don't know.
You know
Or you don't know what it is, you just know it's not Ma'ila
No, I
Mata?
don't know. I don't know.
It's Ma'ila Mata, for sure, it's not even a question.
That means three sides. Three sides.
Who built a Mira? If it didn't fit, it fits. And the Gimel Ruchesel means from the three sides, Ma'ila Mata, above and below. It fits right in. So in other words, the eye has basically, like anything, 6 sides to it, right? So it has, you have the front of the eye, you have the 1, 2, 3, and then you have the top and the bottom, yeah. So the top and the bottom, look, it's like this. If this is the front of the eye, facing outward, out of the eye socket, that part is radiant and illuminating. He's saying this, and this. That's basically Gimel Ruchesel,
Why is it gimbal?
because there's 4. Everything has 4 sides. 1 back, here, and
It
here.
had 6 sides.
So that's Milo Mata. 6 is with Milo Mata. Daled Ruchas is east, west, north, south. And then there's above and below. Basically, it goes like this. Here's the front of the eye. Gimel Ruchasah is the back, this, and this. So you have, it's like, then you have top and bottom. And that he says, he built a Me'ira. I'm just reading Pshat now. I'm not getting a Havana. That's just what he says. I'm not sure what he's saying here. That's not radiant. In other words, for example, the pupil is not there. You don't have a pupil around the whole eye. The pupil is in the front of the eye. I've seen images of an eye. Yeah, the rest of it is whitish with blood cells and all kinds of things, and the nerve endings, optic nerve, and so on. Okay, here we go. Vanakudam tsois in the eyeball. The nakudam tsois, the center point. This I think means the pupil. Harimuchusa b'kisuim rabim is covered with many layers. Kigaldei psalim, like onion rings. Kigaldei psalim, like onion rings. Why is it onion rings is an example used in Eitz Chaim? It's like, in other words, they're very subtle, but they're also within each other, like a flower. So it's like layers, which is correct. That's why when they do surgery, they actually it's like peel layers of layers.
What is the surgery? They take off the
Sel gabizeh, gigaldei psalim. Psalim is onions, galdei are onion rings, are the rings. Sel gabizeh, one upon the other. Like it says in Zer and Idr Rabba, that's Parsha Noseh. Also from the medical books, Nituach literally means also surgery. Yeah, pathological. But basically, Sifrei Nituach, medical, the books of surgery, surgical texts. Now he's going to explain why it weakens. Okay, interesting. You learn Ayin Beis, you learn a lot. Well, and now when a person comes and gets older, and used his eyes extensively, the concealment, the layers become weaker, become diminished. It's like when we say the bones or other parts of the body start, what the word?
Bone loss. You start losing.
Wearing down. Yeah, it becomes weaker, lesser. V'nasa eir rav. And basically the air lets a lot more light in, and therefore, v'ribu eir has a sibur she'eni yochel liris. And because there's too much light, that's why you cannot see.
I thought what you just said earlier, when a person gets older, the nachash gets darker.
That's why.
Because it's real.
That's the point. That's what he wants to say. That the darkness comes when you're getting light that you shouldn't be beyond you.
All the viscosity is higher because there's too much intensity of the light. It's
Yeah.
used up.
I'd like to speak. We'd like to speak to ophthalmologists. To really, this I would translate and hear what an ophthalmologist says in modern times, how they see this, and is this consistent? And I'm sure. This is just to see how you would translate it, because there's two things that strike me right away. The first thing that struck me was he says that you think with age.
More coverings.
No, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say that. No, that's another. 1 second. The thing when it says by using it more, it gets weaker. We usually don't say because of using it more. It's because as you age, it's not because you used it a lot.
No,
It's because of
the whole shape.
No, but it's also because physical things erode.
Wear out.
Yeah.
Deteriorate.
Even if you didn't use it. Let's put it this way. Let's say a person had blindfolded themselves 80 years of their lives and they never used their eyes.
Right.
Then what? They wouldn't. You think so?
Yeah.
No, they would be blind.
We always have our
They
contrarian.
would be blind.
That's very possible.
Yeah, because their brain wouldn't be functioning.
Okay, but that's
That would be a different problem. That's a different
No,
problem.
but what happens when
But you never know. That's what the point is. You can never test it.
The eye actually loses its flexibility to reshape itself, and it happens with young kids with nearsightedness that read a lot. And as you get older, the process is sort of in reverse, and you tend to get farsighted. And one is because of bad habits. In other words, if a kid was reading a lot and then looking, doing other things, if you just sit there and read, you'll see that with people that read a lot, they're much more apt to be nearsighted and need glasses. Certain illiterate populations, you very rarely see glasses.
Okay, let's read what he says here, and then we'll work it out.
When they're young.
How does this? But do you think the way we're describing it here? Do you think this is accurate? This is consistent with the modern view on let's say why we need reading glasses, why our eyes get weaker? Okay. Has a before we get Riyah Ruchnis. Okay. So in other words, the more light goes in.
He means the eyesight. He's not going to that myself yet.
Right. Because in truth, Riyah Ruchnis be'emes, the Riyah Ruchnis be'emes, true, let's call it sublime seeing or spiritual, pure, the spirit of seeing. Ruchnis here. He doesn't mean godly. He means the power of sight. Right. The true power of spiritual sight. No, that's not what he wants to say. Not spiritual.
Power of sight.
Einu yochel liris.
Yeah, when your pupils are diluted, you can't see.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Dilated.
Dilated, yeah. They did.
They're dilated.
Couldn't see, you couldn't see.
So in other words, when the pupils are dilated, that's a good point.
It allows too much light.
You see, right, and you have to squint. You have to squint. It hurts.
You have to wear the dark eyeglasses.
No, that's
You have to wear dark eyeglasses.
So in other words, more light is going in than it should be.
a typical thing.
The problem is, no, but one second. When dilated is the pupils, they get them to be very small, right?
No, bigger.
Oh, that's dilated. No, sorry.
It is smaller.
But then it's the opposite. If the pupils are very thick, or very large, then they
allows more light in.
No, it's not. It allows less light in.
Why?
They're large and that's more light.
That's why at night
more light.
So the pupils, in other words, are
to get more.
The pupils are dark, but they let more light in.
No, the pupils
When
are
it's
dark.
light outside?
Yeah, but it just looks dark because of the blood in the back.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
The more light it is, the more smaller it gets.
If you look carefully, it's because of red. If you look with an ophthalmoscope, you'll see the red reflex really red. It comes out black.
I just had the
It's
procedure.
really looking at.
Yeah, but I bet you there's both
blood
ways. I
vessels
bet you
in the back
people
of
lose
the
sight
eye.
because there's concealment. There's like cataract.
Okay, so in other words, so I understand. So you're saying,
Either way, people are warned. I would think.
so when they dilate your pupils, they're making it seem like it's dark, but there's really light,
Right.
and that's where it's
can't see because
right.
it's so much-
I know, I've had it too. It's very, very disturbing. You look, you think you have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Close your eyes.
It stops the oculomotor nerve from.
Okay, so that stems.
restricting.
Right.
Because the just the pure eyesight on its own is not commensurate. It's not in the league of seeing something physical. He's explaining eyesight even further now. He says because the idea of seeing is a very sublime power. To see something physical, you need concealment, not revelation. You need to conceal. By concealing the light, you see the physical thing. And when there's a diminishing of the veils, and there comes too much light, you cannot see. This is an interesting twist. Here is saying,
But it's a very.
in other words,
But it's also if it's too
You know,
dark.
The power of sight is really from the neshama.
so it's a light. It's a force of light. So for it to be able to see, you need to hide something.
And also you have to see.
What are you hiding?
You also have.
No,
to
you say. What is it? It's not. It can't. It has no relationship to the Gashmias.
So you have to conceal.
It's seeing
It needs a veil.
reflection.
It needs
Seeing
a
the
veil.
reflection of it. It has to cover it.
You can't let too much light in.
ונמצא כמוי במחשבה לגבי הזולס יובן במושל הזה לגבי עצמי. What? ונמצא, so we see from this, like we spoke earlier, just like כמוי במחשבה לגבי הזולס. Like before, when the example we used before, what did we learn before? That the moshel was machshava, to you is revealed, but to another is concealed. So now, yuvim b'moshel hazeh, this example with the eyes, l'gabe atzmei. In other words, it's going deeper in. There, you have it clear in your mind. Another person cannot know. Now, when it comes to your eyes and sight, even l'gabe yourself, true vision would be too much light. You need to have a concealment for you to be able to see a physical thing. He's basically saying what machshava does for another, these concealments in the eye do for you in Revelation. That's what he's saying here. And because of too much intense energy, light, it's concealed even compared to himself. See, machshava, you don't have that example. Machshava, if there's no state. If it's too deep for you, you're not going to be able to think about it. There, the light is too powerful for someone else to be able to relate to. So now he's saying it's a subtle example, but he's going deeper and he's saying so the same thing is with here. Now you have an example. He's basically saying, see, that's why I'm saying these examples are very relevant because now this example is showing bina. Now we're going into bina. That you need concealments in order for there to be any revelation. because it's too intense. Right. And with this we'll understand Mashakoro Chazal, why Chazal call the Summit a blind person b'shem Sagi Nor. Sagi Nor means abundant light. Sagi means a lot of light. That's like stepping on, that's like laughing at, it's like making it cynical. Loig l'rosh means, it's an expression used in halacha in many places, like for example, why we put the tzitzis in when we go to an oil. Because you don't want to, you don't what's the word, you don't be condescending. Loig means to mock, to laugh. L'rosh means to someone that's weak. You don't laugh at the weak, basically. That's an expression. So there's halachas where if you're in a position where you have a position, you don't go loig l'rosh would be, you're like showing, hey, it's a certain element of arrogance. So it says, to call somebody that's blind, you have so much light, it's like making fun of him. The guy has no light, you're telling him he has so much light. It'd be like telling a fool, you're very smart, You wouldn't say that, right? So how could you say it? So he says that because the truth, that is that. Because that is exactly what it is.
What is Nahor in which language?
Light in Aramaic. Sagi Nahor. Sagi means a lot, abundant. Sagi is also Aramaic.
Arab?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, I've heard the term.
Sagi sometimes means help.
It was just saying, it was just like a euphemism, so not making fun.
It is a euphemism.
Yeah, but the euphemism itself it's like saying that a fool is called Ribui Chachma. Full of intelligence. Right. Like you're brilliant.
So it looks like you're making special needs children. They say special needs.
This is the Rebbe brings this to that. Yeah. She says because the truth is that way. She says the reason he cannot see is because of too much light and no concealments. He says apirov, right? Not always. In most cases, the reason for not being able to see that the veils are missing. And there's just too much abundant flow of light.
So that I'd like to ask about.
So this I've heard many times.
Really?
Yeah, this is in many places. The first half, I never saw the details quite, but it's the same idea. Okay, so what do we have from here? So he's saying that even by yourself, in other words, in a different way, the example, we have to know the example. The nimshal is very clear. By me, the moshel, we've got to check definitely. But I'm fine. This is definitely a view you can say. Even if some scientists today or our knowledge don't go with this, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a validity. I don't know if you're correct, because when you start digging deeper, you start realizing, I've seen this many times in Chassidus, that it seems like it's not consistent with modern science. But then when you start really understanding modern science, you really realize it is. It's just not stated that way. Yeah, I understand. For example, I'll give you an example. Where the people talked about don't jump the gun.
Maybe the two most common, especially elderly, is retinal problems and cataracts. Those are the two most common problems.
And cataracts is an actual field. Is concealment.
I'm not an ophthalmologist.
Cataracts is extra layers.
Yeah, it's a what they call a.
Okay.
And the retina tear or detachment it's not bringing the energy to.
That's not,
I still would want to discuss.
Cataracts is just a distortion of their vision because it's another layer.
Too much
not
layer.
A layer.
Okay, no, it's not more light. It's blurry.
Right.
Because there's another. They remove the.
Look, I have no problem. Someone, you want to do research on this? I'm not going to dismiss.
But if you say there's inner light as a result of it not being blocked by that superficial.
Hold on a second.
Cataracts.
But one second. Okay, here's how I would learn it. We just learned. Let's go back to Kuf Lamed Tes. It says that when you want to really kabel from a mashpia, you have to focus completely, get rid of your prior knowledge, and focus completely what he's saying. This is what the Rebbe Rashab says. He's a responsible man. I would say relatively intelligent man. Would you say?
I 100% believe it. There's no problem.
Faith,
but not the way you.
Faith, right? And this is my problem. It's not. He wrote this with an example. Obviously, it's not his example. I think it's the Rebbe Marash's example, if I recall correctly. See, for me, you're fine, right? Yeah. And I'm not. I would go do now research to make sure to understand this in Das Tachten. Okay? That's how you're supposed to learn this properly. Right now I know what he says. I'm not sure what other theories are. I want to go there because I'm not an expert. I would love to talk to a few experts and find out what is the Rebbe Rashab, how do they explain what the Rebbe Rashab is saying here. I guarantee that it's not purely faith. We have to accept this thing. I'm 100% of that. It's interesting. Maybe someone would see this and say, I would want someone who really knows the theories behind real eyesight, how they see things today. Someone may say, you know what, the time of the Rebbe Rashab, that's how most scientists saw it, and it was primitive. And today we see it differently. Fine.
And also people are older now, so the things that I'm mentioning.
Yeah, but but you see, are you gonna do research on this?
Maybe.
And I'm for sure gonna do. Why maybe? The Rebbe Rashab said it. Isn't he worthy of him of trying to find out what he means?
So much
There's a Lubavitcher
spiritual stuff that I
Okay, fine.
Yossi Trackman.
I would do whatever I can do to figure this out. And not me. I would want him to write. Let someone write up a piece in English explaining this. I think would be tremendous. Who knows what will come out of it? I know research always brings better clarity.
I know Yossi.
Does he? Because he learned a piece of Maimon?
Yes.
Tell him to read this. Tell him to tell us. Tell him if he can write something up or convey some way that we can hear what he has to say. I want to hear a few people speak about this.
Cataracts, the major cause of blindness.
I'm not. Let's not do a Google. This not. The Rebbe Rashab deserves a little more than a quick, ostensible, layperson's view on.
Okay.
I'm not even going to a place where I want to analyze it scientifically because I don't know enough to speak about it. To me, it's a mystery. The way the vision is extremely complicated. What you're speaking is mechanical. There's a whole other side. How do you see? What is sight really? What does it mean? How does the nerve translate an image into what we see? I think it's far more on that level. I think he's talking here not so mechanical as he is talking about how what's when I see something, two things are happening. Right? Let's say I could look at a light and you see white light. Then suddenly you appear and I see you because there's light shining on you and it's reflecting. If it's a dark room, I don't see anything.
It's like a movie film.
So exactly. So what's going on? That's where I think is far more connected to what he's speaking about is that.
Same idea.
Like, in other words,
it's like a movie film. When you have no darkness in it and it just comes out of light, you have no image.
Exactly. So if you take away, if the negatives fade,
Right.
what'll happen?
Light.
You won't see anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like the camera. That's what I'm saying. The camera.
That's something what he's saying. But we have to. I want to know if there's is there a base? How would the theorists speak about it? That's all. I don't think he's questioning here whether the retina can be detached or that there can be cataracts. That's of course there are many ways that this can happen. He's talking about the whole concept of the dilation of the pupil is probably relative. Anyway, I would love to hear. So find out whatever you can. Fine. So the point that he's leading to.
But even a camera, when you take a photograph in the middle of the day and you allow too much light to come in, there won't be any picture.
Exactly.
That's blindness.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Right.
So he's talking about that aspect. I mean, obviously there's other reasons why a person can be blind.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah, but I don't know. All I can say, you don't want me to say what it says here? Is it because it's for me?
You could. If I don't care.
According to the World Health Organization, the most common cause of blindness in the world, through the whole world, because America is a little different thing. By far, the most common cause is cataracts, 47.9%. Cataracts.
Which are what?
Cataracts, I looked it up already. It's a clouding of the
lens.
Cataract is a clouding of the lens inside the eye, which leads to a decrease in vision. It is the most.
Does the clouding bring more light in or less light in?
Less light.
It's like being more light also could cause blindness.
Visual loss occurs because opacification of the lens obstructs light from passing and being focused on the retina in the back of the eye.
Maybe they have it wrong. It wears down. That lens wears down.
I'm not having faith this in the Rabbi.
That lens.
No. Listen, I told you I would like to have a thorough someone who can really talk about it and someone who's not looking to just.
Right.
Someone wants to understand. Here, take this, and let's figure out how it works.
The perfect person is Yossi Trackman.
The reason I say it is because I find. I just wrote this article in Ami as a follow-up to this thing. I find this, not this, but the same idea. I find two schools of thought when it comes to things like this. Either one school of thought is that the Rebbe Rashab and then Tedevelt, we don't care what science says. Science changes from generation to generation. A bunch of rubbish. And this is MS and that's it. And That's one approach. Then you have the other approach. The Rebbe Rashab, and they're talking in Ruchnius and so on, and they don't really know about Gashmis. And Gashmis, you have to go to the doctors.
Well,
Those are the two schools of thought I find people
he mentions
gravitating.
the surgical swarm too.
Yeah.
You know.
What's that? These are the two schools of thought I find. I find Chassidus, however, came to a third school. You don't need to go to these extremes, either making this the exclusive and you don't at all look at any signs because that's all Chitzanis. And for sure not the other way around and like saying, oh, you know what? The world of holiness, I go to the Rebbe. A doctor by me is the authority. The same God that told us about Atzilus created the eye. Let's not forget that. And the eye has a wisdom to it. And he said, Nitn Rishus l'Reif l'Rapis. He gave permission and he gave wisdom to doctors and researchers. And even atheists, self-proclaimed atheists or whatever, to research and they can expertly understand. And that itself is godly. So I don't need to say, oh, we have to only look at this and disregard what it says. I would want to know what it says there. And I have no doubt that this is consistent with it. I have not even a suffix. I don't need this to become holier. And I definitely do not see medicine as being the final say. I think you need to combine the two. That's how I look at it. And you have to combine the two. And ultimately, I think we speak about it many times, scientists learning Chassidus properly, both will become enriched. Because there's a reason he's giving an example. Why does he have to give an example? Speak about Atzilus. Because he wants, like we said in the last chapter, I tell you to just mark down, read chapter 140 when you have a chance. You weren't here when we learned it. It's a tremendous chapter on integration of human examples of nature with godliness. That's the point. We want to see in the eye, as medicine understands it, the profundity of God's wisdom. So what the Rebbe Rashab is saying is definitely true. That our eye has parts that are concealers that let light in. And if those concealers are taken away, the veils, it will blind you. That is, I have no question that the eye was crafted by the God, because this is a man that knows what God God created the eye. Who do you think I trust most? I want to go know the engineer. He knows the engineer. You know the story of Pavarotti. Pavarotti once did this great rendition singing, "The Lord is my shepherd." Hateilim, Chav Gimel, 23, Psalm 23, and everybody gave him a standing ovation. He was tremendous. There was one old Jew in the audience. After everyone sat down, he did his version. And the place was crying. Everybody started crying. And Pavarotti asked him afterwards, I don't know if it's a joke or true, whatever, says to him, tell me, me they gave a standing ovation. For you, they were crying. Tell me, explain this to me. He says, because you may know the psalm, but I know the shepherd. See the difference? He knows the psalm, I know the shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. So he knows. This by me is not a suffix. The same God that created the deepest levels of Aaron Sof Infinite Tzimtzum created the brain and the eye and the nose and all that we are. So I have no question that it's, and he created in the image of himself. The Rebbe Rashab, to me, number one expert on the shepherd. He knows the engineer. He's speaking in the engineering room. This is the engineering room of the eye. And so I have no doubt that this will be spoken about in a scientific context. Mm-hmm. You'll find the truths of it. I don't look at it like apologetically and say, oh, this is old times and he didn't get it, whatever. I think this is absolutely emes, and will be consistent with science if you really sit down and struggle with it. No, I'm not disagreeing.
Not really.
No, it's not.
But you don't know how it works.
But Re'iyah, it also comes out.
No, because I'm telling you, there are two schools of thought even among our community. And one school, as I told you, one school of thought says, learn this. Let's negate what it says in Sifrei. This it doesn't matter.
What you're saying.
I'm not. He just asked me how they are.
Listen, you don't have to put words in his mouth. I'm just telling you. Forget about. I'm talking here. There are archetypes. There are people who say this all the time. What are you looking at other things? We have to go to a doctor, but the evidence, like you have to pay taxes. You go pull teeth, whatever. Some people don't do that either.
But the eye has a whole.
Hold on, and then there's a school of thought. I'm saying the important point here in Achdus Hashem. Then there's another school of thought says, God in heaven Shamayim nitn l'Hashem, ha'aretz nitn l'bnei Adam. Earth was given. There's schools of thought that compartmentalize and say a Jew at home and a guy in the street. In other words, when God said go to a doctor, the doctor has power. There's really two worlds. There's God here and there, two maps. Chassidus came to integrate the two. The interesting thing is school 1 and school 2, which I would say 90% of Jews fit into that world today, even more probably. Even because people haven't really integrated Chassidus, suffer from the same flaw. The flaw is that godliness and the world don't coexist. So some people escape to God, and others give the world too much power. Like, I'll give you an example. The Rebbe explained in Purim, Kertzein Ish v'ish, when Mordechai, and Haman, so it says Kertzein Ish was Mordechai, and Ish was Haman. It's an unbelievable sikha in last year, Nun Beis, I think it was, Vayeshev maybe, Vayigash. So there's two opinions in Medrash what that means. One said that once a melech, that what does it mean? You accommodate. So there's two opinions regarding din de malchus adina. When a king says something, being that we live in this world, you have to give into it. You have no choice. Or is it pshat that itself is what God wants? That God wants that you listen to the king, not because of the king, it's God's power. It's a very big difference. So a lot of people say, okay, the world has some power, or that itself is a divine thing.
The same argument on the Rabbanim, which is the Rabbanim. The Torah tells us that.
And the key is to really understand. That's why I believe Chassidus brings Sifrei Netuach. The Rebbe Shabbos specifically bring an example, and I have no doubt a responsible person wrote this. The Rebbe Shabbos knew it's going to be read not just in his time but today as well. So there's no way that
I can explain it. But one second. Okay.
Fine, that's all.
Logically, I can explain it. Inside the brain, what you have is when something's stimulated by the so-called light outside, what it really does, it inhibits certain circuits, and a lot of things are explained that way. So there's a whole ore inside, and you're getting less light by seeing an image.
I think that's not consistent with what he's saying here. What you're speaking is very metaphorical. Anyway, bottom line is like this. Look. If somebody here wants to take upon themselves this, I would love to. If not, I'm going to do it, but it'll just save me time. I would talk to this guy, let's get a few ideas together in one pot here.
But isn't it consistent with what we said before? Remember we discussed this whole thing of focus, of tzimtzum, in order to get higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perceive.
Yeah, very.
Bigger picture, you have to.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
Yeah. You're talking a different subject. I was just talking about I was talking about reconciling this with the modern ophthalmology.
The same thing. Though.
I'm going to ask also. I'm a castle in Detroit.
Okay. Right.
You know him?
Yeah.
He's an ophthalmologist. He's a surgical ophthalmologist. He really knows this stuff. And he knows this.
Right.
I'm going to send him this. That's exactly what I would love. For me, I'm excited engaging these people. Not because what you're saying is, and not because I have a problem, because that's how you want to make Chassidus come alive. I would love somebody to take that and really, who knows? A guy will say, that's a theory that was discussed in our thing and actually can be built upon. Maybe some new revelations will come out of this. I'm convinced that if you do this is how Mashiach will come. Because if an ophthalmologist school takes this and adapts it and says, we learned in Ayin Beis so-and-so, and they develop a theory of eyesight that helps people, trust me, it'll make more Kiddush Hashem than anything. We talked about this. That's why I'm excited about it. I don't even have a question that this is Emes Lamite. By me, it's how. I wouldn't venture to go into this.
Can I say one more thing, please? Just like the mayach inhibits the air that comes in, the mayach is a filter, the keli, and stops air from coming in. It's the same way as any of the levushim. Just like it has to be like that because it's part of the whole mechanism of the mayach.
100%. I told you it's the engineering how it works. Look, he made it very clear. A camera, very simple. Too much light goes in, and it's also blinded. It's not, blindness doesn't always come when there's no, listen, a camera will not get a picture two ways. Either it's too dark or it's too light. Simple as that. That's a given.
Yeah.
So the question is how that works in the eyesight. How does that work with blindness? What's the theory of blindness? I have no doubt that in the real academic world, there's plenty of debates about the theory of blindness. What you read is Google. That's why I said to you. You go to the real theoreticians, you're going to find some real interesting insights about sight. No pun intended. Okay, let's go right then.
But getting back to your point about the two philosophies.
Well, maybe we should stop here.
The world, the two approaches. One is holy, one is Shemaim, one is ours. The famous story about the Rabbi knowing what to give a person. When you go to a Rabbi, he either is Ruach Kodesh, the Buddha says he does it by Ruach Kodesh, and the other one does it because he's experienced, he gives aces. That would relate to something to this effect, right? How the Rebbe knows it.
Look, let me just say a few words about this. We're going to stop here, but
it's a combination of the two of those.
I'm going to tell it to you very specifically.
That was the discussion today.
Let me give it to you in very specific terms. And this is the Chiddush of Chassidus Chabad, and I write about this extensively. Almost in every article I write, there's undercurrents of this point. Because this is a fundamental principle that touches everything. Philosophy, psychology, not everything. Even how we live our lives. How Yiddishkeit is supposed to deal with the world. Look, the fact of the matter is that, and I'll give you the short of it. I have long discussion. I have long lectures on this topic. Briefly speaking, before the emancipation of the Jews and the Enlightenment, we're talking now 300-400 years ago. Or even less. Baal Shem Tov, Alter Rebbe, Chassidus came exactly when the world was changing. The birth of modern world, and especially the birth of modern assimilation, can be rooted. What happened was simply this. 500 years ago, just to take a number, 400 years ago, you're talking the years like before the Baal Shem Tov, most Jews lived either in a ghetto, in a shtetl, most cases oppressed, isolated as Jews, overtaxed as Jews, persecuted as Jews. They couldn't, even if they wanted to, assimilate. The only way they had out was baptism in the Christian world. Simple as that. And there was very few, but the Jews had very, they couldn't. That's why the Jews went into the money business. Because they were not allowed to go into trade. They couldn't do conventional trade. They were prohibited. So, you can't even work with non-Jews, let alone land or other thing. So what happened was, in turn, was a very powerful Jewish building of internal communities. That's why you had very, very strong Rabbanim, you had very strong Gemachs, because they only could take care of themselves. The Jews could only look at themselves. So every community built a very strong, solid base. You had Talmidei Chacham, scholars. What kind of scholarship came out in those oppressed years? It's itself a miracle. That they were, Rashi, Rashi was living, what kind of time he was living in? Ramban? They talk about massacres were going on. Blood was in the streets. Europe, the Crusade, right? Yeah, it was horrible. But there was this strong internal, like a Kashayana Esam Ken Yirbe V'chein Yifrit type of thing. Yeah, right. Yeah. Now, then things changed. This is like the story of history. Things changed when they call first the Renaissance, the emancipation of the Jews. The Jews were the first to benefit from the new waves of, let's say, freedom and free inquiry. The church dominated and monarchs dominated. That was it. No one had a say. There was no such thing as freedom. There was no such thing as rights. Rights didn't exist. Individuality didn't exist. Nothing existed. You had, then what started changing was the waves of what they call freedom and democracy, or whatever you want to call it, that would end up being the French Revolution, the American Revolution, began sweeping through Europe. In the first place, Jews were the most oppressed, so the Jews were they began to weaken the hold. This is essentially when three things happened. The birth of the Reform movement, the birth of ultra-Orthodoxy, and the birth of Hasidism. The Reform, Moses Mendelssohn, basically approach was, we have newfound freedoms, they let us in now, let's benefit from the best of both worlds. Now they all grew up from environments. Their attitude was exactly as I said, a Jew at home, a guy in the street. The problem was, where do you draw the line? What happens if your neighbor, your Protestant neighbor invites you to Christmas dinner, they serve pork. Are you now in the street or you're at home? I'm just giving you a very blunt example. So basically, without a strong quality control, what happened was it began to just totter. And though Mendelssohn himself remained, they say, Shomer Shabbos till the end of his life, yeah, but his students, Abraham Geiger and the rest of the gang, if you read them, they already took it all the way. Eliminating all the laws of Tumah and Tara, all laws of Beis Hamikdash, everything that was not virtuous, was not, what do we call it, humanitarian, and very extremely. To the extent, just to go to how far it went, there was a point where when the reform came to America in the early 19th century, they had a Pittsburgh platform where they suggested 10 amendments to Judaism. One was to change Shabbos from Saturday to Sunday. That was never adopted because even the most liberals said, once you do that, might as well get rid of all Judaism. Basically, you're just turning it into Protestantism. But their logic was very simple. Why do I stand out? Listen, we all keep Shabbos. We'll do it Sunday. Everybody's Sunday. I'm not now laughing at the suggestion. I'm just trying to show the integrity. Philosophically, where do you go? How far do you go? What are you mavater? What do you come? On the other extreme, in the Eastern Europe, was born what would become what we would call today ultra-orthodoxy. Was these newfound freedoms are a curse. Okay, they're letting us out of our ghettos. We have to build our own ghettos. Hence, you have New Square, Kiryat Yoel, an approach. Let's put up the blinders. We'll put up the walls, and this is the devil at work. Technology, modern advancements are all a curse. Chodesh Osim in Atera, the Chassam Sefer said. Now, what was there was also a logic that you could say, because yes, they didn't say there are no benefits there. They said, but the benefit, the liabilities outweigh the benefits, right? Now, the Alter Rebbe, interestingly, I'll get to that in a minute. But the Alter Rebbe, I'll say now, the Alter Rebbe, he sided with Alexander over Napoleon. Why? Because he said those newfound freedoms are too dangerous. Interestingly, he preferred oppression over freedom. But the Rebbe makes it clear that was only then, because he knew it was true. He would prefer ultra-orthodoxy basically over reform, to put it that way, bluntly. But not ultra-orthodox because he wanted that. He knew that it'll take a while for Chassidus would take hold, because the third approach, which is the Baal Shem Tov, Baal Shem Tov was born, I think, within 5 years when Mendelssohn passes away. You're talking about literally all happening. Magdim Refuah L'Maka, the real thing. When we say the Jews were like asleep and Yisrael was like Besal, he didn't mean the Jews were asleep. Jews were very firm Jews then. What do you mean? They were scholars. It was a very good time in Jewish scholar. But asleep meant this problem was festering then. This was the problem that would become a major, major problem. Today you can appreciate the Baal Shem Tov a lot more than you could have appreciated him there, because then it was just full conceptual. What did the Baal Shem Tov teach? The essence, what he taught is that now we need Primus Atera, because we now have a new world to deal with. We can't just rely on the insulation of the old shtetl, where you could pick up Yiddishkeit just from the smell of chicken soup in your mother's kitchen. Now we need to articulate it, because we have we have to contend with new philosophies, new exposure. You want to fast forward to our age. We have to contend with Google. We have to contend with the internet. There's no way you're fighting the internet by putting up blinders. Because today a mobile phone, everyone has, is the whole world. And look what happened to the ultra-orthodox. They have to remain immature Jews with blinders on, because they can't face with they cannot compete with the ideas of that are out there. Chassidus came to say, that's why I'm making such a big fuss about it. Because that was the whole point of Chassidus. Chassidus says we're not afraid of the secular world. But our approach is not compromise, go in the street, God forbid. Our compromise is to realize all technology, all science, is basically trying to understand the same God that's in the Torah. But these two worlds never clashed really, because Jews were, as I said, insulated. The Goyim were out there. Now Jews are out there. And what do? Ultra-Orthodoxy, ironically, as ironic as it gets, and I always tell this to my Satmar friends, is as screwed up is based on the same flaw as the most reform. You know what it's based on? That God and the universe can't coexist. Faith and modernity cannot coexist. This one runs to faith. This one runs to modernity. The mom is the same problem. They just chose two different extremes. Now, what's our approach? Our approach is not that science, because the emancipation and the Enlightenment and Voltaire and all these guys and Rousseau, they knew their stuff. It's because God wanted that finally there'll be a real dir b'tachtenim. The Alter Rebbe understood, like Yaakov did, that right now the children are still young and the sheep are tender. The Rebbe brought that. So we can't yet go meet Esav. But the Alter Rebbe also understood by planting chassidus, and once there'll be a development, as the Rebbe explains by Yeshiv Nun Beis, he says what I'm saying beferish. Now we can conquer the West. Now we can go where Napoleon was. Now we can go into the so-called Western decadent world of kfira, and not only not be overcome by it, but by transforming it. But not transforming it by giving it credence, by understanding any gift is really like the Rebbe. The Rebbe wrote a note to me personally in the Sikha Mishpatim Mem Dalet. The Rebbe speaks about radio. And radio was one of the things, by the way, the Rebbe first resisted. Interestingly, when Rabbi Weinberg wanted to start learning Tanya Radio, the Rebbe said no. And for a year or two, then he said yes. And then the Rebbe embraced it fully. Why he said no, I think is the same like with the Alter Rebbe. It was like, not yet ready, and then we had to become ready. What was the Tanya that everyone had against to the Rebbe was a radio, TV. What's on the next channel? You know, the next channel could be Shalosh Klippos HaTameis, can be pornography. What's going on here? The Rebbe wrote, in the Sikha Mishpatim, it's printed. The Rebbe wrote it with his own handwriting. It was so important to him that not only did he write it, he wrote it with footnotes and everything. That's how I know how important it was. And he wrote these words. I remember it vividly. He wrote, you can read it. I could read it inside if you like. It's an unbelievable paragraph. Not paragraph, sif. He wrote a whole thing. He wrote that God forbid, Rachmana litzlan chaz v'shalom, to say that technology was created by man. He says, koyach adir ba'aretz, that there should be such a powerful force in earth that allows for communication, allows for unity, etc., that to say man made it, God forbid. However, it's like gold. God created gold. The Medrash says he created gold for the Beis HaMikdash. And only because he wanted b'chira, he gave him the ability to build an egel hazav. They built a golden calf out of it. But because there are fools in the world, God's going to destroy his gold. Because there are fools in the world, he's going to destroy his technology. This is the essence of what I'm saying, Chassidus. Technology is God's. So why are we conceding and that this belongs to them, so to speak? To Klippos. And we remain in the shul. No, that's also God's. And now the time has come to redeem it. And anyone uses otherwise, they're the aberration. So, here you go. If you talk to the very ultra-Orthodox, say, no, it's Klippa and Klippa. Yeah, for business we got to use it, blah, blah, blah. You know, they'll compromise themselves. If you talk to the so-called world of modern Orthodoxy or conservative reform, will say, no, there's two worlds. Yom Kippur, I go to God. Technology belongs to the material world. You know, and Chassidus will say there's no dichotomy. It's all God, but God put that into a world with His choice, and so on. It's a very fundamental, completely different approach that has real implications. We're not afraid of it. That doesn't mean you have to bring a television to your house. It means that we live in a world where you want to use television, by all means, use it for chassidus. It was created for that purpose. It's basically an offensive approach instead of a defense, an offense. And it's also an approach of transformation instead of... It's also no fear. It's not...
It's really in the Lashon of Ayin Beis, it's the ultimate interface.
Absolutely.
Ultimate interface of technology.
That's why by me, I'm so passionate. When I see the Rebbe Rashab does this, I want to join the two. That's what you want to do, fuse the two.
So getting back to the Rebbe, when you first...
Because I'll tell you, the Mashiach will come, what will ophthalmologists be studying? They'll be studying Ayin Beis, plus what they learn through their science. That's what they'll be studying. That's how I see it. Now, no, I'm not suggesting Torah is the place where you go learn ophthalmology or physics and so on. Torah is God's blueprint. But it's got in the engineering room of God's blueprint includes the theories that apply in all these sciences. So I think God wants us a partnership. He gave you a mind to take the ideas that I have here in Atzilus, and now show me how it's in medicine, show me how it's in physics. Remember what I said? Were you here when I spoke about what I said at the medical conference? You like this? The doctors. I spoke to a group. It was a medical conference in one of the hospitals. So I was asked to speak about medicine of the future. So I spoke about Mashiach's times. There'll be no more illness, no more death. Okay, and I explained why. I explained because it's once you have a synthesis of body and soul, a body. Why would a soul ever have to leave the body? If the body is a healthy body, not punctured, the soul and body can live forever in a healthy way. It was the Chetei Tzadaz that created the punctures, etc. You get the idea. At the end, the doctor gets up, very eloquent, beautiful. We all agree. But what are we going to do then, doctors? What's with all our knowledge that we gain? So after the prerequisite joke that that's why you charge so much to save for a long retirement, I said, no. On the contrary, you will be teaching us the secrets of God's wisdom like nobody can, because you know human anatomy, human physiology. The human being was created b'tzelem Elokim. Imagine the depth of secrets you could be teaching us by understanding what you know about the human being and teaching us those depths of God's so-called being. And they all got up and gave me a standing ovation for that. They loved it because I said, that's what you'll be doing. So instead of be fighting illness and disease and infections and death, you'll be busy teaching us the beautiful mysteries. And scientists will be doing that in the world of science.
I've never heard that one before, and that's a beauty. That is really beautiful. You're saying understanding God from the body,
and this is
from
exactly
medical science, medical understanding.
Right, and the same thing. Well, astronomers will do that, and physicists will do it, and marketers, and Yale graduates.
That's nice. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, what means lo yi'esa kol ha'elam el l'das Hashem avad? You think they'll just be sitting learning Maimorim? They'll learn their wisdom will be.
But how does that compare? How does that relate to what I was asking about the Rebbe? When you know that thing that the Rebbe said there's three shitas. Either the Rebbe's a Ruach HaKodesh, the Rebbe's a Baal Nisayon, or
okay. So I'll answer the question.
That's connected to this, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say it's the third option where it's both. Let me tell you. I heard the story. I put it in my book in Torah Meaning for Life, and I think in the science technology chapter. I heard from, who did I hear it from? Someone who was in YU. He went there for a Tanya share, and one of the teachers called him over and said, "Are you Chabadnik?" Yeah. Let me tell you a story. When I was young, me and my I think girlfriend or whatever, it was a friend of his, guy and a girl, were by the Rebbe in Yechidus. They established Yavna. Yavna was like another Hillel. I don't know if it ever caught on, but I've heard of it. Yavna. It was like I think a little different than Hillel. And they asked the Rebbe a lot of ideas, how to do it, etc. in the early 60s. Then they asked the Rebbe, they have a question to him. It's tremendous, Rebbe's answer. They said to the Rebbe, we hear that the Rebbe is both proficient in Torah and in science. And we don't have a question how you can do both, but simply time. How do you keep up? There's only 24 hours in the day. How could you be studying and mastering it all, even if the most brilliant mind needs time to read everything? So the Rebbe said, listen, I'm not responsible for what people say about me, but since there are people in history that had that, let me tell you what I think. The answer is, but he deflected it from himself. That's what the Rebbe didn't deny or confirm about himself, which was Kimuvan. The Rebbe was not going to speak about himself, but the Rebbe said, his answer, I just love that answer. The Rebbe said, there's two ways to gain wisdom. One is by studying detail, and you build your theories until you prove them. You observe and you study, which is most science looks that way. Obviously, you're using knowledge from the past. And there's another way the Rebbe says is when you go to the root of the idea and you know it in its source, and then you apply it to different systems. So the Rebbe said, since God created the world, He created it with that type with a logic. That logic applied is in all the different sciences planted in there. When you learn Torah, the Rebbe says you learn the theory of the engineer. And when you know the theory, you know how you can apply it far easier into all the systems. So the Rebbe said, so they not necessarily sat and read every medical journal or every scientific journal, but since they know the basic theories, they know the operator. Yeah, exactly. So they know ways of thinking. So it's very easy for them to immediately pick up the different applications in different schools of thought. That was more or less the Rebbe's idea. I'll tell you why I liked what he's. I'll tell you what. No, because the Rebbe didn't say a Rebbe is a doctor. He didn't say go to a Rebbe to do surgery. No, but Elam Hazar, could the Rebbe do surgery, heart surgery? I would say it doesn't give him a shleimus to say he could do heart surgery. He doesn't have to do heart surgery. It's not his job. Just like a Rebbe doesn't have to be a Kohen Gadol. A Rebbe's a Rebbe. But does he know the theory of heart surgery and know the way God created the heart and all that and can say a lot about it? Absolutely. Two different things. Because God did create a world where He wanted people to be experts in certain things. The heart surgery, you need to go to school, and you're not going to trust someone unless he knows how to do it. It doesn't just because somebody even a guy who's a medical expert, if he hadn't done it, he's not going to do surgery. In other words, that's not because we're conceding that Elam has power, because that's how the same God that created the Chochmah created also Tachtainim, and He wants Tachtainim to work with Tachtainim. Just like you go, when the Rebbe says go to when the Rebbe says go to Yedid Reife, the same Rebbe said Maimer Chassidus. So for me, so when he went to the Rebbe and he gave advice, I say it's a lakus, bislapshus in Seichel. That's how I say. I wouldn't call it Ruach HaKodesh. Because Ruach HaKodesh I would call something that is overtly where you can't rely on any common sense. In other words, you need overtly Ruach HaKodesh. I would say that it's actually higher than Ruach HaKodesh. Because it's the truth through the levushim of the world. That's how I would put it. Now, obviously, when Hillel Patriarchs once was arguing with the Tzemach Tzedek about a shot in the Maimon that Tzemach Tzedek himself said. So they asked him, Rabbi Hill, you know the story?
Yes.
Rabbi Hill, how could you argue? The Rebbe said this was Maimon. He knows what he said. He said when he said it was Sinai, and now we're speaking now Seichel. Now we're speaking. The Rebbe wants on the Seichel Anushi.
Right.
What does that mean? That's not a dichotomy, because God wants that. God wants a likus to come into Seichel, not because Seichel has power. Because God said, I want my Metzias to be mispashet also in Seichel. And I want you to struggle with the Seichel of it. I don't just want you to rely. That's what I'm saying. Just to say it's holy, holy, and to say, oh, my Seichel has power, to me it's the same problem. It's the opposite. It's no, Seichel is godliness. And when you struggle and you try to understand, you're bringing godliness into Seichel.
That's why Mashiach is going to be a big talent.
You follow? It's a key element. A key in everything, by the way. In everything.
Yes.
So when you go to a doctor, you're not going to a doctor because we're conceding that Torah doesn't have an answer. No, that doctor is God's agent. Simple as that. That's how God wanted it to be. Same God. So I'm going to be so holy, I don't need to go to a doctor. I rely on God. I'm not saying which doctor. Obviously it should be someone competent. And that we're talking about. But I mean to say, you go to a lawyer. You go to an architect. You go to someone. Look, everybody knows when it comes to, for example, buying a house. You're not buying a house without proper representation. Correct? Why? Not because it has a teikif. So when Mordechai was in the Shar HaMelech, it wasn't because the king has power. God wants him to have power. Okay, so he has power. I'll give him power. Why Rebbe will honor the wealthy? Why did Rebbe mechabed Ashirim? Because the Ashirim are really powerful? No. God blessed him with Ashirim because He gave him wisdom to know how to spend it. So Rebbe honors him. This to me is the key to it all. So the Helam Afalakus, the Helam Afaleb.
Now, like, what if a guy's a good plumber? Or a good
okay, we'll stop here. Yeah. Let's stop here. 1 second. We did the first half of chapter 142, page 274 and 275.